Classic way to begin a new week. Good morning, everyone. Are we on the breakthrough that we've been waiting for? President Trump saying over the weekend that U.S. and Iran have struck a deal to end the war, what that entails and where things go from here. So there are many questions out there. We'll work through them day by day and step by step. And congratulations to LJ. He nearly survived. I'm Bill Hemmer live in New York.
And to Ainsley for getting it across the finish line. We love that. All right, I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. A lot of news and a lot of sports over the weekend. We'll get you caught up on everything. So President Trump is celebrating the deal as he heads to the G7 in France. Pakistan helped mediate the agreement, and it says a signing ceremony is scheduled for Friday in Switzerland.
So now the deal is designed to restore global shipping and begin formal talks on Iran's nuclear program. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, breaking that down the following way.
First of all, I think it's a great day for the American people because what this deal does fundamentally is two things. It immediately reopens the Straits of Hormuz. We're already seeing in the past 24 hours more traffic flow. You see oil prices coming down. But you also have the long-term commitment that Iran will never develop or procure a nuclear weapon. Those are two very big wins for the American people. I think the important thing to understand is that the agreement is fundamentally built around a two-step verification process. We say to the Iranians, you are welcome to have access to an unsanctioned economy. You're welcome to be reinvited into the world economy, but only if you honor the commitments that you make in this agreement.
So now a new week begins. General Jack Keane has analysis on where we are at the moment. Trey Yingst reporting on this throughout the weekend. Terrific job then and again today. Let's start there in Tel Aviv. Trey, hello.
Yeah, Bill, Dana, good morning. After more than 100 days in a state of war, a deal has been reached between the United States and Iran. Overnight, President Trump posted on Truth Social saying that the deal will bring peace and security to the entire region. We still await the final text of the Memorandum of Understanding, but we do know a signing ceremony is set to take place on Friday in Geneva, Switzerland. Shortly before the agreement was announced by President Trump, the Pakistani Prime Minister thanked Qatar, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia for their roles in negotiations. Prime Minister Sharif said this today from Islamabad.
After 3 months and 16 days of horrible war, with the grace of God, Iran and America have agreed and announced ceasefire, and a complete and permanent end to military operations has been declared on all fronts, including Lebanon.
Before the deal was signed, it was nearly derailed. The Israelis targeted Hezbollah with strikes in response to drone attacks on the northern part of their country. Iranian officials immediately vowed to respond with missile fire toward Israel. A diplomat with knowledge of the situation told Fox News that Qatari mediators stayed in Tehran conducting intensive negotiations coordinated with the United States. Vice President J.D. Vance described to Fox News what those final moments were like before the agreement was reached. Could you take us behind the scenes of what that moment was like leading up to this deal actually being signed?
After the Israelis struck Beirut, we were very worried, and we saw a lot of evidence that the Iranians were going to launch a large number of missiles at the Israelis. With our communication with them over the course of getting to this signed peace deal, they assured us that they were not going to respond to the Israelis, and they were going to sign this agreement and get to peace. Now, of course, you always have to verify these things, Trey, and we know that there are a lot of people in the Middle East who do not want to make this deal happen.
I spoke with President Trump just before the agreement was reached, and he was optimistic about what this agreement means for the region. He also got directly involved, ensuring that the Iranians didn't launch missiles at Israel at the last moment. Bill?
Okay, Trey, we should see him in about an hour's time when he arrives there in France. Before Friday happens, do you know of one telling moment that we should all pay attention to watch and see whether or not this deal stays intact? If you were to point to one thing, Trey, after all your conversations, what would that be right now?
Well, I would look at two things. When you broadly have an agreement like this, it's important to be measured because it's one thing to sign a deal, it's another thing to implement a deal. And there will certainly be roadblocks and hurdles ahead. But ultimately, we will initially see the Strait of Hormuz opening again. And in response, the United States will lift the naval blockade of Iranian ports. It's this 60-day window that's critical to look at as it relates to Iran's nuclear program. And if they're actually serious about making these concessions that they have indicated they will. But we should also look at what the Iranians didn't get as part of this agreement. When they entered into negotiations with the United States, they demanded that all U.S. forces leave the Middle East, and they're not getting that. Ultimately, even if there is a U.S. military drawdown, you will still have thousands of U.S. service members in places like Bahrain, where the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet is located, and also in places like Qatar at the Al Udeid base that normally houses around 10,000 American soldiers. And so the military option will remain on the table for President Trump. And as part of this agreement, U.S. officials tell Fox News the Iranians are not going to receive sanctions relief until they uphold their end of the bargain.
Wow. Okay, a lot to go through. Trey, thank you. Oil's at $80 a barrel so far today. Trey Yingst, thank you, live in Tel Aviv. Dana's got more.
And General Jack Keane joins us now. Thank you for being with us on the Monday as we kick this off. And can you just give us your general assessment of what we know so far about this deal?
Yeah, well, certainly Friday's going to be a key day. They haven't released what is in the memorandum of understanding, so we're left to speculate about it. And certainly the administration has given us some sense of it. Iran's given us some sense of it as well. Three major things there. Obviously, the first one is ceasefire, the extension of a ceasefire. You know, Bill asked Trey about one thing. How about starting there? Because we've had a ceasefire for 2 months, and Iran hasn't abided by that ceasefire, and nor has Hezbollah. We have had 2 months of continuous and persistent violation of a ceasefire. So hopefully that holds during this extension period for another 60 days. Second, Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, the Iranians have committed to opening up the Straits of Hormuz, and we have to watch that and make certain that there is no organization or management control or nuanced intimidation or coercion that is still going on, where they're telling ships when to go, where to go, etc. That is not something that we're going to tolerate, but it is something that Iran clearly believes they achieved in shutting down the Straits of Hormuz. After all, it was the shutting the Straits of Hormuz down that helped them to stop the war. And certainly maintaining some kind of control is likely an aspiration. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. We'll certainly release the blockade, and hopefully we'll do that incrementally based on Iran's behavior here. But we got to remember what actually brought us to this. I don't think it was anything to do with the Israelis or Hezbollah. I think what brought us to this was the president's bombing campaign last week for 2 days, threatening the third day if you didn't sit down and get serious about the deal. And the threatening the third day, they got serious. The major issue going forward, we've got 60 days of tough negotiations. Let's just assume the ceasefire and the Straits of Hormuz work as described. And obviously we'll comply with the naval blockade. But the tough things are ahead of us. All of the issues surrounding nuclear, ballistic missile restrictions in terms of range, lethality, and volume, to be sure, and support for proxies. Those are down the road. Every single one of those is going to be tough. And why is it going to be tough? Well, the reason is, Bill and Dana, is the regime. We may be dealing with different people after we killed the Ayatollah and 40 of his leaders, but they're still diabolically, ideologically committed to who they are and what their goals are. They'll sign something, to be sure. They want to survive, recover, rebuild, and then they will try to reverse the deal. That is who they are. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. The administration is clear-eyed about this, and President Trump has said, that's why I pay attention to what he did last week for 2 days of bombing. If they renege on this or they have problems with signing it, I'm going back to that. So that is a lever that we have. The other one is a lever the vice president mentioned, and that is financial relief. They desperately want financial relief. They're going to get some when the oil starts flowing again, obviously, but they want sanction relief, and they want their frozen assets back. Okay. We can't do that unless they absolutely change behavior.
A couple things here. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, he was on CBS on Sunday. Go ahead and roll this clip about the blockade.
So as far as our military posture, we'll maintain what we need to. The blockade has been a devastating success for us and impact on the Iranians. So our military posture will be whatever it needs to be to ensure they're compelled over this 60 days through the memorandum of understanding that they live up to what they said they would do.
Okay, so the 60 days are really going to be tough stuff here. We'll watch it. Now, the president just shot this out. From France, we believe, or maybe on board Air Force One. He said ships are starting to move, many loaded up with oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. They're going along the southern highway, which is totally safe, secure, and pristine. There are other areas of travel also. So the southern highway is along the Omani coast, and not what the Iranians wanted in between the intersection of their islands along the Iranian shores there. This 60-day period, sir, if we reach it, this is precarious. It's tough stuff because Iran's history is to get to that table and just drag this thing out month after month and eventually year after year. I just went like, what do you think about us getting suckered back into a long, stalemated negotiation?
Well, certainly what we've just gone through is an indicator of just that, and I'm sure that's why you're raising it. We went to a ceasefire because the discussion was that they would open the Straits of Hormuz in 2 weeks' time frame. And here we are now, 60-plus days, and finally that is going to happen. So they had two objectives when they shut the Straits down. One, stop the war. Two, drag out the negotiations. They did drag out the negotiations. Our negotiators are certainly clear-eyed about what they're dealing with here. They know full well that what the Iranians say and even what they sign may be different than what they actually do. Why? Because we've been watching them for 47 years. Then they cheat and they lie. And we know that's what they're up to. That is why we cannot have just open-ended negotiations, in my view. Privately, we can tell them we don't necessarily have to do it publicly, but this is what we want to see, and these are the timelines we want to see it in terms of these agreements going forward. They're banking on the fact that the closer we get to the midterm elections, the less likelihood that President Trump would ever reinitiate military operations. Well, he just did it last week. That's an indicator to me he's dead serious about it, and he said he's willing to do it again. So that is a lever that we have to watch to stop them from dragging this out, as you indicated, because that has been their history. What they say, what they sign, and what they actually do and implement, history tells us are two different things. And we have to bake into this deal enforcement and compliance, and certainly the threat of military operations is a part of that.
General Keane, thank you so much. So much to chew over today, and we're grateful to have you on the show. Thank you.